Hello everyone, this is Mr. PSRB Shashank, working as an assistant professor in the department of CSE in B.V. Raju Institute of Technology, Narsapur. In this video, I am going to discuss the course Computational Thinking and Programming and the topic Introduction to Functions. As functions plays major role in every programming, so we'll see what exactly is a function, what are the categories of a function, and how we can see all the categories, how we can execute all the categories one by one. So going to the topic, first thing is, what is a function? So function is nothing but a code which can be used more than once or frequently, we can say. That means we can say it as a modular reusable code. It's nothing but if I'm having a large block of code, I can make that large block of code into different, we can divide that into different small block of codes. Like this. If I'm having a large block of code, I can divide that into small blocks. Using this, I can make this function 1 work, and I can bring some output from function 1, and I can make this function 2 work, I can make this function 3 work and bring some output, and combine the output whenever that is used, and use this function whenever that is used. That's why we'll say that it has modular reusable code. A function is nothing but which will work whenever it is called. Which will work whenever it is called. If I'm having a function which is called as mouse, keyboard, mouse will have already some code which is inbuilt in that. Whenever I'm clicking on left click, it will perform actions of left click. Whenever I'm clicking on right click, it will perform actions of right click. Likewise, whenever I'm calling this function 1, it will perform all the operations whichever that are there in function 1, and it will give me some output. If I'm calling function 2, it will take all the operations and it will perform all the operations of function 2, and it will give some output again. Likewise, there are different advantages using functions. First thing is, using functions we can implement modular programming. That means I can divide the function into each and every modules, and using that I can implement it as a modular type of programming. So next point is, function can make program more readable and understandable. See, if I'm writing a program, if it is of 300 or 400 lines of code, and directly you are making some iterations and writing a program. And if I want to reuse that particular one, I need to copy whole content of that and I need to reuse. And if I want to make sure that this particular part, let me say a part of factorial, that particular part is used with only that particular calling function, then I can use that as a function, use that particular factorial as a function, and whenever I need that, I can call that particular function. Likewise, I can divide that into parts and I can make it more readable and more understandable. And program implementation becomes easy, the point which we have discussed till now. If I want to implement a program, if I want to implement a larger program, then that will be most easy when you are dealing with functions. So I can reuse the code many times once it is created. If I want factorial at first particular position, I can use that particular function. If I want factorial at some position, second or third position, or at the end of your program, I can call that particular function and I can find some output using that particular function. So main thing is, larger programs can be divided into smaller modules, as you have seen this particular one. All the larger programs are divided into smaller particular modules. So this is what. So next important thing is types of functions. So in functions also we have some types. That means what? It may be a predefined or it may be a user defined. There are two types. First thing is library functions. Library functions, we can call that as a predefined functions. We can call that as predefined functions, or you can call that as standard functions. So what exactly are library functions? Library functions are nothing but predefined functions. Example, we can say it as scanf. You can take it as printf. You can take it as strings. In strings, you can have string reverse, string upper, string lower, everything. So all those are predefined type of functions, or you can say it as library functions. Where that are located? Those are located in your header files. If I am saying that I have an header file stdio.h, conio.h, math.h, string.h, standard input output, console input output, math.h, string.h. See, we have some more header files, stdlib.h, we have graphics.h, we have. So in stdio.h, standard input and output.h, we have some particular functions which are called as printf, we have scanf, we have files type, file pointer we have there. So we have fopen, fclose, all the things we can use in stdio.h. In conio.h, we can have clear screen, we can have getch. So all those are library predefined functions. In math.h, we can have square root, we can have power in that. In your string.h, we can have string reverse, strrev. You can have string upper, string lower, all the functions which are there with strings. That means all these functions, printf, scanf, square root, power, all those are having predefined meaning. If I am saying printf, that's nothing but I am calling a function which is named as printf, and that is stored under stdio.h. stdio.h is a header file which stores some particular information about printf as well as scanf as well as files. Some of the predefined functions. I am using that predefined functions. Those type of functions are called as what? Library functions. Those type of functions are called as library functions. In the next thing we have user-defined type of functions. User-defined means a user, a programmer, a person who is doing a program. Whoever is creating a function, those functions are called as user-defined functions. That means user will define that function, user will declare that function, user will call that particular function. Examples, you can take your own names. So these are two types of functions. First one is library function, second thing is user-defined function. Library functions are already having predefined type of meaning. User-defined functions are created by a user. So we'll go with the next important thing, which is called as representation of functions. Representation. See, for library functions, already we have representations, no need to represent. For user-defined functions, we have three types of representations. First thing is function declaration. Second thing is function definition. Third thing is function call. Function declaration, function definition, function call. So normally if I am saying a function, I need to make sure that that function is in this type. That means I need to take some particular set of rules for that function. So function definition. Definition means what? Body part of that particular function. Function call. If I am having something called as mouse, and we have designed that particular mouse, and if I am not clicking on left click, that is waste of use. If I am not clicking on right click, that is waste of use. That means I need to make sure that I am calling that particular function. Calling here is called as clicking that left click, clicking that right one. So first part is function declaration. We'll start with function declaration. So look at this. In function declaration, this is the syntax of your function declaration. In that you have first thing is return type, function name, and parameters list. Return type, function name, and parameters list. So what exactly is return type? What exactly is function name? What exactly is parameter list? So return type is nothing but, if I am saying that I am using this mouse, If I am using that particular mouse, I am clicking on left click. If I am clicking on that left click, what I should have a click on your screen, or I should open something on your screen. That means it is returning me something. So if I am using a particular function, that should return a particular value. If it is not returning, that is different classification. If it is returning something, then we need to mention that my function is returning a particular data type or a particular data type value. So this is called as return type. That means which is giving me the output of a particular type. So this is your return type. And the next thing, function name of a function. Whichever you are giving the name of a function, that should satisfy your identifier rules as well as your variable type of rules. It should not start with digit. It cannot have other special symbols. You can have underscore. It should not have spaces there. All the things should be taken part here. So parameters list. So this is your optional part. Either you can send parameters to that particular function, or you can call the function and you can give your values inside that particular function. So normally, if I want to use a function, I need to declare that particular function. So where we need to declare? We can declare it globally or we can declare it locally. We can declare it globally or we can declare it locally. Globally means it will be declared before your main function. It can be affected to whole part of the program. If I am declaring it only at a particular local point, up to that end of your particular block, it will take. And in this thing, function declaration, we can call it as a function prototype also. Function declaration, we can call it as a function prototype also. See, and important thing, in return type, if I am not having any return type, if I am not getting anything from this function, I should write that as void. I should write that as void. If I am having a return type, I should write like this. I'll say int, this is my return type from that particular function. Function name, I'll write it as function1. So parameters list, I'll say I'll pass only one parameter, which is integer. That means return type is integer, name of your function is function1, and the next thing is what? Parameter list. So I'll make this as integer. So the next thing, I'll write something called as void function1 of, I'll say int. That means I'm not getting anything in return. If there is no return type for a particular function, you have to write it as void in your declaration part. And function1 is name of the function. Again, int is the parameter you are passing to that particular function. So we'll go with the next one, which is called as function definition. Normally, function definition is nothing but the body of your function, whatever you are giving inside that particular function. So we can say that as actual code of the function. If I want to find a function, if I want to make sure that I'm having something in a particular function, I'll say it function1 of, I'll say int or n, some value I'm giving. So whatever I'm giving inside this is called as your function definition. It's nothing but the body or total the operations whichever that are done in your function1 is called as your function definition. So whatever that is implemented is given to that function1, and you can see the syntax here. Return type again, function name, parameter list, and opening of a particular block, closing of this particular block. It's nothing but whatever you are doing inside this function is given in this particular part, actual code in this particular part. If you are writing something here, that will be executed in this part. So this is your function definition. See, we got your function declaration, we got your function definition. Now the main thing is function call. The main thing is function call. We got the description of your mouse. We got the code inside your mouse. Now we need what? When we need to call that particular one. Now we need when we need to call that particular one. If I am calling at a particular instance, it will execute that particular function. If I want to call it line 7 or line 8 like that, if I want to call whenever that is used, then I can use that particular function and call it. So this is the syntax of that function name as well as parameters. Function name as well as parameters. So function name you can take an example, function 1. Parameters you can have only one parameter passing. So this is about your function call. So you have three types. First one is function declaration, after that definition, after that function call. Function first one is declaration is nothing but it can be called as prototype. Definition is nothing but body of that particular function. Call is nothing but calling a particular function. And we'll see one of the main important thing which is called as classification of functions, or you can say categories of functions. There are 4 things mainly. First one is function without parameters and without return value. Function without parameters and without return value, first one. After that we have the second one, function with parameters and without return value. And you have the third one, function without parameter and with return value. And we have the fourth one, function with parameters and with return value. So without parameter, without return value, with parameter, without return value, without parameter, with return value, and with parameter and with return value. These are 4 classifications of your functions, or you can say categories of functions. We'll see one by one what exactly is that. So I'll just explain you function without parameters and without return value. So we need 3 parts in a function. The first part will be function declaration part. So I'll just give like this. I'm including your header files in this stdio.h. So function without parameter, without return value. Now look at this. How we can have function declaration? I'll show all that. I'll just give this called as void main. So without parameter, first part, I need function declaration. Second thing is I need function definition. Third thing I need is function call. Third thing I need is function call. First one I need is function declaration, definition, call. So I need function declaration where you can declare I'm declaring it before your void main globally. So what I'll do, I'll take a function name, any function name, I'll say add. Function name I'll give it as add. You can give your own function names, that doesn't matter. But give the name of the functions and use it accordingly. So function declaration, what I am doing, function without parameter, without return value. If there is no return value, then I need to make sure that return type is void. If there is no return value, I need to make sure that return type is void. And without parameter, there are no parameters here. Just we are declaring a basic function. Void add. This is return type. This is name of the function. These are parameters. There are no parameters here in this particular function. So first part is done now, function declaration. Now function definition. Function definition. I'll write it here. So add, this is nothing is passed and return type is void. I'll just take values here, something called as I'll give printf, enter. This is optional statement. Either you can give printf or you cannot. So I'll read the values from user. I'll say first is %d, second is %d, ampersand a, comma, ampersand b. So I'm taking two values now. One is a, second thing is b. I'll say something called as printf a plus b equal to percentile d. In place of percentile d, I need the value of a plus b. So this is a part of function declaration. So this is a part of function definition. We have defined a function now. We have declared a function, we have defined a function. The main thing you need is function call. There is no connection between this particular function as well as this particular function. It's executing, but this will never execute if I am not giving function call. If I am just giving declaration part, if I am just doing whatever I want here, see if I am giving like this printf hello. Okay. If I am just giving something called as hello here, this will never execute. If I am giving hello, hello will execute and this will be skipped. Why? Because there is nothing called as function call. If I want to execute this particular function, I need a function call. So what is that function call? What is the name of that particular function? Add is the name of that particular function. This is your function call. Firstly, this is declaration part. After that, it is control will jump to main part. After coming to main, it will go to printf hello, and output will be first part. I'll write the output here. Output will be printf hello. First it will print hello and it will go to next line. After this add, on seeing add and on seeing this as a function, control will jump from this point to this point. Control will jump from this point to this point. Now it will go to this point and it will check this with your declaration part. After checking that, int a comma b, whatever the operations whichever that are done inside your definition part will be done automatically if you are calling. Int a comma b, again it will say printf enter ab values. It will say enter ab values, enter a comma b values. So give some values there. I'll give 20 and 30. 20 space 30. Printf a plus b equal to %d a plus b. So it will print a plus b equal to 50. Again, after completing all the things in your function definition, the function control will come back at this position. So if I am giving a statement here again, printf end. If I am giving a statement like this, printf end. Now this will print an answer which is called as end. This is how a function without parameters and without return value will occur. Without parameters and without return value. That means I'm just giving a function and I'm just giving a function call and a function definition. I'm asking that function to do all the operations and print there itself. I'm not asking anything in return from this function without return value. I'm not giving anything, I'm not asking anything. This is about your function without parameters and without return value. So the next thing is function with parameter and without return value. With parameter and without return value. I'll give again a function which is called as add function with parameter. If I need parameters, so I'll give one parameter. Let me say I'm giving one parameter. So you have taken add means a comma, we have taken the previous example. Let me give two parameters, int comma int. If you are giving integer type, make sure you are writing it as int comma int. If you are writing other data types, type, you can give other data types. So without return value, this will be automatically void. So I'll just give this as again hash so void main. I'll start with again void main. So without parameter, with parameter and without return value. There are some parameters here. So I need to pass parameters to this add function. So this is function call. For this function call, I need to pass parameters. If I need to pass parameters to this function call, I need some parameters there. So I'll take like this. I'll just take two values here and a comma b. I'll just give a statement scanf %d comma ampersand a comma ampersand b. I've given two values here, two declarations, and I've taken two values a and b. I'm passing a comma b to this particular function. I'm passing a comma b to this particular function. Which function? Add function. Now what I am doing, without return value, I don't need return value. Just give the value, don't expect anything. This is the point. So add of a comma b. So what should be here? It should be something called as void. Void add a comma b. Why void? Why means this is without return value. So I'll perform some operations here. I'll say int c. I'll declare one thing, c equal to a plus b, and I'll print that particular c. Sir, without declaring c, can I do it? Yes, you can do it. C equal to %d comma c. If you want to do it without declaring c, yes, you can do it directly. Replace a plus b at this position. So if I am calling this particular function, if I am calling this particular add a comma b, then what it does, it will jump to this particular one. After going to this particular one, it will go to this part int c. So now add a comma b is having some values. Let me say a is holding a value 20 again, b is holding a value 30 again. So int c equal to a plus b, 20 plus 30 is given to c, printing of c, that's it. This is directly taking values from other function and it is using that values and it is printing. With parameters, these are parameters. Without return value, there is nothing returning from this function. So this is about with parameters and without return value. And there is main thing to discuss here. See, these two are called as parameters. Let me see it. You may have a doubt. Sir, can I change the names of a comma b here? Can I have other values here? Yes, you can have other values. Let me say I'll have x comma y. So I'll write it as x plus y. That means, sir, can I have x comma y comma z? No. Based on your function call, you can have your values here. So these parameters are called as actual parameters. At this point, we'll call this int comma int as arguments. If something argument is holding some value, I'll say that as a parameter. And if parameters are in your calling function, it is called as actual parameters. If parameters are in which function? Calling function. Then we can say it as actual parameter. And the next thing, if parameters are in called function, this is your called function. So these two are called as formal parameters. If these are in calling function, if the parameters are in calling function, we'll say it as actual parameter. If the parameters are in called function, we'll say it as formal parameter. So this is your called function. That means we can modify the names there. We can modify these names and I can use that modified names. Sir, can I use AB also? Yes, you can use AB also. That doesn't matter. So this is the classification function with parameters and without return value. We'll go with the next classification, without parameter and with return value. Without parameter and with return value. So without parameter, so just I'll give add function. Without parameter, no parameters. With return value, we'll see what we can return. So hash so I'll just give void main. So with return value, without parameter. Without parameter means nothing should be passed to this function. So I'll just give add and I'll call that particular function. Now I'm giving something called as add here. Nothing is passed. So I'll take two values here itself, int a comma b. Why I'm taking variables here? Why? Because nothing is passed. If I want to do something, I need to do operations in this only directly. So I'll take again scanf, %d, ampersand a, comma, ampersand b. After this, I'll just use, see now you got values of a, comma, b. With return value, I'm not giving anything to this add function, but I want return value. I'm expecting something from this add function. That means I need to have a return value. I need to have a return value. So what I'll return? I'll return something called as a plus b. I'll return something called as a plus b. So let me say I'm having a as 20, something b as 30 again. 20 plus 30. So this will return 50. 50 is of which type? 50 is of type which is called as integer. So this function is returning which type? This function is returning a type which is called as integer type. So I'll write this as int add. So what should be the return type in your function declaration? That should be int. So we got something here. Directly this control, on seeing return, the control will come back. If you are writing return in the first line, this function will stop executing in the first line itself. So control will come back to this add function. Either you can directly give something called as add and you can take a printf statement. You can take like this, printf %d, comma add. Either you can do this directly or you can have like this, or take one more value. I'll say int c equal to add. Give this add value to this c. That means add will hold a value called as 50. 50 is given to which one? C. Printf and in this %d, comma c. So we are printing this c value now. So function without parameter, we are not passing anything to this function, and we are doing whatever we want inside that particular function. We are returning a value from this particular function and we are catching that value using C and we are printing C. Need not to make sure that writing C and printing C. You can directly give this add C here itself. Not a problem. So this is your function declaration, this is your function call, this is your function definition. As you can see in your online judges or any point of view, they'll write it as int main at this particular point, int main. And they'll write something called as return 0. That means this function is returning a type which is called as integer. Here this function is returning a type which is called as integer, so we have written it as int. So previously the function is not returning anything, so we have written previously it as void, previous one. Now we are returning something called as int, so we are writing int. If it is returning a float value, you have to write it as float. This is about your function without parameter and with return value. And the next thing, last thing is function with parameter and with return value. So with parameter, with return value. So I'll write a function name first. I'll write header file. So I've written a name of a function. So with parameters, I'll pass how many? I'll pass 2 parameters. If I'm passing 2, write it as 2. Int comma int. So I'll just write again void main. So why you are writing void main? You may have it out here. Why? Because I am not returning anything from this main function. So I am writing it as void. So with parameters. So I'll take parameters here using your int a comma b. So scanf, using a scanf, let me have some parameters. One is %d, second thing is %d, ampersand a comma ampersand b. Now what I have done for this add function, I need to pass 2 parameters. So I have given 2 here, I am passing 2 here. 2 parameters are given, 2 parameters are passed. Add a comma b. Now we are going to definition of that particular function. So I'll give that definition add of a comma b. I've given that definition. After giving that definition, with parameters with return value, I need to get some return value here. Directly I can have what? Directly I can have a statement return a plus b. Directly I can have a statement which is called as return a plus b, or you can take something called as or. This is part. Add a comma b. Oh, sorry, no semicolon is needed here. Add a comma b. I'll say something called as int c equal to a plus b return c. Both the things are having same meaning there. Both things. Either you can have add a comma b and return a plus b, or add a comma b int c equal to a plus b return c. Both the things will hold same meaning here. No change in the meaning. Everything will give the value of a plus b only. So I'll just write return a plus b. Why? Because a value and b value are already passed using a add function, and we are holding this and we are giving the value. Which type of value you will get here? You will return a value which is called as integer value. So I'll write this as int. So this function is returning an integer value. Int add int comma int. Again, either you can print this directly, or you can take one more variable. I'll say result. Or you can have one more variable. So result equal to add of a comma b, and printf in that %d comma result. %d comma result. Up to what extent you can access your result? You cannot access result after this particular one. You cannot access result here. You cannot access result here. Result scope is up to this end of this particular block. After end of this particular block, result cannot be accessed. So this is about your function with parameter and with return value. We have parameters here. We have return value for this function. We are getting that return value using add a comma b to a particular variable, and we are printing that particular variable. So these are the classification of functions. So first thing, make sure that you are giving function declaration. After that, you need to have function definition. You need to have function call. Without function call, if you are giving declaration definition, that's waste of use again. You need to have function call and function declaration as well as function definition. So this is about your function with parameters and with return value and classifications of functions. So, thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. hit the bell icon for more updates.